Thanks for tuning in to Proline TV. It's horse racing time as we get a little bit closer to the Kentucky Derby, but we haven't even reached the really peak season of Derby prep racing, even though we are slowly getting there. 3 Derby points races last week. We're going to go over those 3 races to start the show. And then we've got our races for later today at Tampa Bay Downs, which includes another Derby points race, the Sam F. Davis. How's it going, John?
Good, Greg. How are you?
Doing good. It's always exciting to finally get to this point in the season. You know, we get through the holiday season and things kind of slow down, and you get through the Breeders' Cup, but this is when things start to percolate again. So we got some good horses last week that made some statements. So we'll get into that. Other than that, it's snowing in New York.
It's snowing up in Saratoga. They're expecting snow in New York, in the city, Saturday night into Sunday.
Okay, so what's the racing that might be impacted up there?
Sunday at Aqueduct. They may cancel.
Okay, so keep that in mind, everybody. We're recording this on Thursday afternoon. Okay, so let's take a look. First of all, we're going to go in order. We're starting with taking a look at what happened last week with the Withers. So let me pop that up here. And there we go. Okay, so we don't have to run the whole race, but let me just get this started. Okay, and the Withers, you had, again, it was a short field, but Captain Cook, I think Captain Cook, did he go off as the favorite?
I honestly don't remember.
Yeah, he might have. I know he was one of the, I think he was the morning line favorite, but there it is. Citizen Bull.
Oh, yeah. I like the horse that ran third.
Wait, why is this? I don't want this.
7 horse. Yeah, that was the Dutro horse. First time around. It wasn't a good race. Those horses are not going to be any impact at all come Derby Day, I don't think.
All right, so this is the one where, Captain Cook. Oh, there you go. Mo Quality was 5-2. That was the 5 horse. And anyway, Captain Cook won this race rather easily in a pretty short field. Let's get the stretch run here. And like you said, I mean, it's real hard to determine also with a very short field like this. There were 4 horses that were kind of all battling it out for the top horse in the race as far as the odds were concerned. But it was Captain Cook. He had a little bit of a battle there with a heavy long shot. So I'm not sure if that says anything good, like you said, about the quality of this race, John. But Captain Cook goes on and gets the win, his second straight, 2 wins out of 3. He ran a 17, then a 14. So for his sake, hopefully he ran better than that in the Withers win. Okay, so that was Captain Cook. Next up, let's take a look at what happened in this race, the Santa Anita race. This was that Baffert special. And unfortunately, Citizen Bull, as good as the horse looks at this point, John, he just has not, that was quick. He just has not been, he hasn't been in a big field of quality horses yet.
The problem with that horse is his last 2 wins, both of them in the Breeders' Cup when he won and when he won last Saturday. Well, last Saturday was a 4-horse field, and Baffert had 3 of the horses, so they let that Baffert go. The other Bafferts took back. It's not a real race. I want to see him when he's in a 12-horse field and everyone's taking shots at each other. So you don't get anything by being in a 4-horse race and going for a stroll in the park, because basically that's what he did. And the other Baffert horses aren't going to challenge him. They let him get away with a, lonely lead.
Yeah, he ran a 10 in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile.
Yeah, but even in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, if you remember, Jonathan's Way and Ferociously both had trouble at the start. And he ended up on a loose lead. And who was chasing him? Another Baffert horse who put no pressure on him. So, I take nothing away from those races.
All right. So what do you think? We have one more race for Citizen Bull before the Derby?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're only in February, March, April, May. Yeah, probably.
Because he is right now way ahead as far as the points are concerned. He's sitting there with 60.
Baffert has a chip on his shoulder. He was not allowed to run in the Derby the last couple of years, so there's nothing more important for him than to have them ready on Derby Day, and you could be sure he'll be there with a couple of horses. He wants to win the Derby this year more than anything else to basically stick it to Churchill Downs. So.
And then in the Holy Bull, we had Burnham Square here getting the win. Right now he's fourth. Before the stretch drive, he was 5-1 on the morning line. We gave
out that exacta. The horse that I liked ran great. It was only his second career start, Tappan Street.
Tappan Street, yep.
Career start number 2 to go up against winners and to go 2 turns in a graded stake race and to beat the rest of the field by 10 lengths, which they did. I want to own stock in that horse because the upside on him is huge. Huge. So.
Yeah, Burnham Square. It was a nice ride by Edgar Zayas. Really a perfect ride. Really nice win for the horse. It was
a good race. Those 2 horses were clearly, the big disappointment in the race was Ferociously, who once again didn't show up. I think he's a sprinter, closing sprinter. I don't think he wants to go that far.
Because what was interesting was that when you looked at his resume or his past history, and again, we've talked about this before, horses that are that young, the trainers sometimes don't even know what they've got there. So in his first race, the strategy was to close. The second race,
he had no choice but to close. He got left in the gate that day. He was breaking from the rail at Saratoga. It was an extremely impressive race. Anyone that walked away from that race really had to love that race, and he just never came back to it or lived up to it. So,
which one was that?
His first start was at Saratoga. He was breaking from the rail.
Burnham Square?
No, I'm talking about Ferociously.
Going back to Ferociously. Okay, with the 9 in that race. Right. Yeah. Now, how did he finish in this race?
Nowhere. That was the point. That's what I was pointing out. I think he's a closing sprinter. I think he's going to be a lot better around a 1-turn mile or 7 furlongs.
Okay. And then, because the interesting thing is Burnham Square, his first race, he closed. Second race, he closed. Third race, he went wire to wire, ran a 10. And then this race, he closed.
Yeah.
So
he has multiple ways of running, and that's good. You don't want a horse that has only one style, where everything's got to work out for him, whether it be speed or closers. Obviously he could do what he wants, and that's a big plus.
Okay. And then, like you said, in that one, you hit the exacta with the 7 over the 3. What's interesting is that, and this is why it's really, we could sit here and say, obviously you pick the winner, but you get the exacta. But I'm sorry, but same thing happened in the 12th race, which was the Tipton Forward, where we both had the 7 in the exacta with our original pick, which was the 11 Stunner, who actually went from a 4-1 horse down to 2-1 maybe. So he finishes in second. So when we're watching the race, I know it's better for us. And that's the way I feel. Hey, I want the horse that's going to give me a lot more money that I didn't pick for first to finish in first. Well, and then even though my horse that I picked first didn't finish in first, even though I get it, we want our horse that we picked to win first. There's no question about that. But it is better for us in the bank account.
Not necessarily, because, for example, in that situation, I mean, just personally, I had a lot more money on 11-7 than I did on 7-11, even though 7-11 was paying more. So say I had like a $20 exact on 11-7 and only $5 on 7-11.
Okay.
I was still, even though it paid more, I was better off if the 11 won.
I guess it depends on your strategy or how you wager on it. Okay.
Not only that, that's the horse I gave out. So obviously I'm going to be rooting for that horse.
Yep. Okay. So there you go. That was last week. And now we're going to talk about Tampa Downs. I don't think we've done Tampa Downs in a while.
Tampa Bay
Downs. And I guess the weather's going to be okay. I don't know if it's going to rain or not, but
I checked the weather. It looked like it was going to be a nice day.
Okay, so definitely no snow, and it sounds like there's not even going to be any rain.
Not in Tampa, no snow.
So the 11 is the big one that we're going to talk about second. That's the Sam F. Davis. But first, and again, that's the Derby points race. But we're going to start with the race here, race number 5. It's a 6-furlong race, the Pelican Stakes, $125,000 purse for 4-year-olds and up. This is, of course, a dirt track. This is should go off about 2:15 on Saturday. And the morning line favorites, you've got the 2 Nutella Fella, a 2-1 shot, and the 4 Caramel Chip is a 5-2 shot with Red Ortiz Jr. on board. This, by the way, this is a 7-horse field. And it looks like to me, John, this is one of those races. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is one of those races that you feel good about trying to beat the favorites. I think the favorites are vulnerable.
Well, certainly Nutella Fella is vulnerable. I mean, this horse is 4 years old. He's only run 4 times in his life. You know, his last race was good, coming off of a layoff at Tampa last time out, so maybe he needed that race. But he also ran on Lasix that day. He was beaten at 4-5. The train is 3 for 36, I believe, at the meet, so he's not having a great meet. Listen, the horse is good. He won the Hopeful at Saratoga a few years ago, but obviously has physical problems, doesn't run all that often.
No. His first race, he won with an 18, then switched trainers, won, like you said, in the grade race with a 15. And by the way, that was I mean, you had a couple months off, not a big deal. But then after that race, he needed almost a year off, came back in another grade 1 race and ran a 9. Then he needed another 6 months off and ran a 13 in his last race. So you're, like you said, John, you talk about a horse that is just, for some reason, he just can't feel healthy coming out of a race.
Exactly. The good news is he's coming back close. The bad news is he's coming off of Lasix. Maybe he needed that race, but at 8-5 or whatever he's going to be, I'm willing to play against him.
Yeah, that's the trick there that we just talked about. Any other favorite in the race might as well go through first is Caramel Chip. The 4 gets a Red Ortiz Jr. back on board. The last time a Red Ortiz Jr. was on this horse was the race, this very race last year when he ran a 9 coming in 4th. So Caramel Chip was in this race last year, finished 4th. He was about a 6-1 shot. He's now one of the morning line co-favorites, just about. And a Red Ortiz is back on board. The horse has not won, by the way, since last January of 2024 when he ran an 8. Hasn't run an 8 since. Matter of fact, 4 of his last 5 races have been 11 or higher. He did run a 9 in that grade 3 race at Gulfstream a couple of starts ago.
Yeah, the problem with this horse is he's okay, obviously, off of numbers. He doesn't really run a bad race. However, that being said, he's now 7 years old. So one thing we know for sure, he's not getting better at 7. The problem is that he's probably going to get a little worse, and he's 5-2. Irod Ortiz is aboard, so you know one thing, he's going to be heavily bet at the windows. He's also coming off of Lasix. I would try to beat this horse. I'm using him, whereas I'm not using Nutella Fella. I am going to use Caramel Chip in my exactas, but I'm going to key the 5-horse in here. Pure Class, the next horse that you're going to come up to. He's not quite as fast as other horses are, but he's on the improve. He's just turned 4 years old. His last 2 races were a 13 and an 11. The 11 was at Tampa. So I'm hoping that he improves off the 11. And if he does, he's going to be right there. And I think he's going to be value. So for that reason, I'm using that horse as my
What I like about him is that when you look at the sheet, you see that his first 3 races, he improved all the way through, got a win in that 3rd race, and then took a step back in his next race. But as soon as he took a step back, he went forward again, going 17-13, winning twice. Then what did he do? He took another step back, but then what did he do after, a couple of races where it didn't go too great? He went forward. And in his last 3 races, he's gone 18, 13, and 11. So he's now 4 years old. And why can't he finally get his first single-digit number on Saturday?
Well, that's what I'm hoping for. And I hope you're right. And I hope I'm right, because he will offer some value.
All right. Also in the field, the 1 looks like he's overpriced at 6-1.
Yeah, I don't like that horse at all. He's not fast, and he's short price. I don't need him.
The 3, though, Silver Slugger. This is a horse that I definitely like at 15-1. I mean, why not? I don't think this horse is going to go off at 15-1 because he's 3 for 3 at Tampa. And also in his 3 races, after he had a really bad situation in his first race because he needed to take 2 years off. But how impressive. He goes out there in his first race, something happens, And then he comes back 2 years later and wins 3 straight races, going 16, 14, and 12.
Yeah, the only problem with him is he's now 5 years old and he only has 3 races in the last 4 years. So that's a little bit of a concern. It is good news, though, that he is coming back off of a short layoff. So whatever was wrong with him isn't wrong with him anymore. And like you said, he's 15-1. The negative, he's coming off of Lasix. But I'm using him. I'm using the 5 pure class and exact as well. Do you want to discuss one more?
Yeah, we still have 2 more to go. We've got the 6 horse, which is Dreaming of Kona. And Dreaming of Kona is the 6-1 shot. You got the Spieth brothers, I guess, right? Or
No.
that father and son?
Yeah, I think it's wife and husband, maybe.
Husband and wife. Okay, well, it's family.
But
anyway,
don't quote me on that if I'm wrong.
What's that?
Don't quote me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the horse is 0 for 3 at Tampa. And the last time the horse ran on a dirt race was Gulfstream running a 13. The last 3 on synthetic were 11, 12, and 14.
Yeah, and he's a little slow. He's coming off of a layoff. The barn is 4 for 20, so that's okay, I guess, for the most part. But at 5 or 6-1, I think we have better options.
Including adding the 7. Life is Precious, an 8-1 shot, 6 out of 7 on a dirt fast track, and coming in 5th straight race at Tampa. The last 2 races, now they have been in January, so you have to deal with that. A 3rd race within a span of 5 weeks, but those were 2 9s, and you are getting 8-1.
Yeah, and chances are he's going to react off the 9s, but I'm using him strictly because of the price. Listen, people are going to think he's cheap. He's running optional claiming races, so they don't think he has the class. But the numbers are there. I wish he had more time because the 2-9. Listen, off the first 9, you thought he would bounce for sure last time out, and he didn't. The fact that he put 2 races together is a positive sign. But now is the time where he looks like he's going to react. But again, he's a use because of the price.
And John, you're going with the 5 and
pure class and exact is with the 3 Silver Slugger, the 4 Caramel Chip, and the 7 Life is Precious. 5 with the 3, 4, and 7. Obviously, you could reverse them as well.
And I am going to do much of the same. I'm going to go with the 5 over the 3 and the 7. So that's Tampa. So race number 5. And now we got a Derby points race to do. We have the Sam F. Davis, and this is a $250,000 purse race for 3-year-olds. A mile and a 16th. Only one of these horses has run a mile and a 16th so far. One has run a mile and an 1/8. Every other horse has run a mile or less. So, by the way, the morning line favorites before we go through the field will be the 3 and the 8. The 8. Excuse me, not the 3 and the 8, the 3 and
the 6.
The 6, yeah. The 6 is a 2-1 shot. Correct. And the 3 is a 3-1 shot. Okay, so let's go through the field, and we're going to start with the 1, Camp Hale, who has never won a race. Did start the first 2 races late last year with 13s, but is coming off a 17.
3 wins, 3 seconds. I'm sorry, 3 starts, 3 seconds. That's not a good sign. He's a maiden running against winners and running in a grade stakes for points. I don't like him. I think he's probably going to react.
Okay, the 2 is Treaty of Rome. Now, there's got Chad Brown horse, and you got Dylan Davis, a 6-1 shot, 2 17s late last year, but a 14, that was about a month ago. So always got to keep an eye on a Chad Brown horse. In this situation, what about Treaty of Rome?
Listen, he's never done anything wrong. He's stretching out to 2 turns for the first time. His distance races, both mile races that he ran in his last 2 races were around 1 turn. So it's a different game, but it is Chad Brown. If you wanted to use him, you can, but I don't like him. I have better options.
All right. The 3 is one of those co-favorites we talked about, John Hancock. You got Brad Cox. You got Flavian Pratt. So that's going to take notice, especially that this horse ran at Tampa and in his first race ran a very strong 11.
Yeah, if you recall, last week we liked Tappan Street, the Brad Cox horse, off 1 number, and they threw him in the Holy Bull. Well, kind of the same situation here. Cox is taking this horse out of a maiden win and running him in a stakes race for points for the Derby. So I respect that. The only difference is this horse is coming back. He ran on January 8th, 1 month ago, where the horse that ran last week had more time coming into the race. I'm going to use this horse, but this one I'm not going to key. By the way, last week, Flavian Pratt spent Saturday at Tampa Bay Downs. All he did was win 4 races. Chad Brown had 4 races, 4 stake races. He rode them all, and he won them all. So
wow.
He's going to get overbet for sure this week.
All right. Next up is the 4, Dr. Ruben M. And Dr. Ruben M has gradually been better since his previous races. Unfortunately, still a little slow. 22, 19, and a couple of 16s coming in.
Yeah, the good news is he's never gone backwards. 22, 19, 16, 16. He now has time off. He could run a new top. But even if he runs that 14, which I think he's going to run it, 14 probably won't be good enough in this spot.
The 5 is Gateskeeper, a 30-1 shot, who ran a 16 and a 19 with no wins.
No good. Too slow.
Now, here's the morning line favorite, the 2-1 shot, Owen Almighty. As we mentioned, Red Ortiz Jr. on board, coming off a win at Tampa. The 3 previous races were very good to start your career with a 12 and 2 13s. The problem, I guess, is going to be, I don't know. I mean, you tell me. He's coming off a 9. That's a new 3-point top. The previous 2 races with 13s. And we're at about the point where it's going to be even less than a month. So what about a potential bounce factor here?
Well, what's strong about this horse is his 2-year-old races. He ran 13s. He ran a 12 first out in Churchill last June. So this horse has a license to be this good. This is the first time he's going to be coming back this close. However, the 9 was at Saratoga. The question is going to be 2 turns for the first
Tampa.
time. Yeah. Well, he ran at Tampa last time when he ran the 9, I should say.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So the problem with him is going to be the distance. You know, he's going to be the favorite, but take nothing away from him. 13s is a baby and 9 first out. The reason that I went to a different horse in the race is because the 8, Naughty Rascal, if you want to go down to his sheet, he also ran an 11 and 9 in his last 2 races. Both of those, by the way, were at Tampa. So what's the difference between the 6 and the 8? The difference is the odds. The 6 is 2-1. The 8 is 6-1.
Absolutely.
If the 6 was 6-1, and the 8 was 2-1, I'd pick the 6.
Yep.
But I'm going to go with the 8 horse here. You know, again, the 6 is certainly the horse to beat, but
so you definitely would go over the 6 over the 3.
The 8, you mean?
No, 8? The 6. You would go with the 6 over the 3.
I'm using 8 over 3, 6.
But which one, if you had to choose, the 6 or the 3?
Well, the 6 is 13s as a 2-year-old is strong, but the trainer of the 3 is Cox, so he's even stronger. It's a toss-up.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So speaking about that 8, Naughty Rascal, definite use, as you said, John, and you can even go back to the fact that in all 6 of his races on dirt, he has gotten better each time. 26, 20, 18, 11, and 9. And the 11 and 9, yes, those are the most recent. The 9 is going to be less than a month, but still, it was just a 2-point new top, so that's not a major deal. And you're getting, as you said, John, 6-1. And the horse has a win over Tampa, 4 out of 6 wins. I just hope the odds don't drop too much. But if you stay around 5 or 6-1, I mean, that's a really good play.
It is. And why wouldn't he stay that price? I think he'll stay that price. By the way, the 6 horse beat him last time, and they DQ'd the 6 and put this horse up. The truth of the matter is, I watched the race. The 6 did really nothing. I thought it was a bad takedown, to be honest with you. And I don't know if the 8 was ever going to beat the 6 that day, you know, last time out. But again, the odds dictate. So for that reason, I went to the 8.
All right. In between, you have the 7 Poster. Now, this is a 4-1 shot who's got a grade 2 win. No other horse in here, I believe, has a grade 2 win. And of course, that was the Remsen back in December, ran a 14 in that race. That was the first time he was on dirt track. He has improved all 3 of his races from a 19, 17 to a 14. The only thing is he's a little bit short at 4-1, but still a good contender here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, listen, he's 3 for 3, so he's going to take money. He's undefeated, 3 starts, 3 wins. But listen, I don't know. He's another horse in the race. I was actually using him I was using 8 over 3, 6, 7. So I guess he did make my cut.
All right. The 9, that would be that's actually a nice long shot that I'm gonna put into my exacta.
What do we know about him? He's got
Exactly.
no numbers.
Exactly. But I like the fact
Jose D'Angelo first time, who does a terrific job there. So
yeah, and I like the fact that he's the only horse in the field that's run the distance as well. So he's got. I know he hasn't run in the U.S. I know this is like maybe I know the tracks are the tracks, but like you said, he's got a good trainer here. It's a long shot. He's run the distance before. He obliterated his field the last 2 races. So there's that. So yeah, so I got to try to make some money, and in case he does sneak in there, maybe I can make some money. And the 10 is very bold. The 20-1 shot. Again, not the worst idea in the world. The horse has gotten better pretty much every race on dirt. 21, 15, and 14. He ran the 14 in Tampa last time out, running in 3rd place.
He's never been around 2 turns. Well, he was around 2 turns, 2 starts back on Tapeta at Turfway Park, and he went backwards. So off the 15, he bounced to a 21. So chances are he's probably going to react today. But listen, 20-1 shots we never argue with. So my play is 8 with 3, 6, 7, and your play is
8 with 3, 6, and 7. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead then, and I will do. Let's see. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to be boring, but I'm going with the 8, and I'm going to go 8 over 6, 7, 9.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so that's it. Again, Tampa next week. We are going to be back, and we are talking about next week. We've got 4 graded stakes races at Fairgrounds, including a Derby points race, the Grade 2 Risen Star. We've got, by the way, there's a Derby points race next week at Sunland Park, the Sunland Derby. And Gulfstream's got the Grade 3 Royal Delta. So that's next week. So it looks like we might be doing Fairgrounds next week.
That's what it looks like. Thanks, Greg. Stay safe and be well. And thank you, everybody, for listening, and hit subscribe. That's my job, to tell everyone.
Thanks, John.